Consider supporting the work of Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian by becoming a monthly patron. Your contributions will help keep the resource alive and support its mission. Visit patreon.com/NAHblog to learn more and make a contribution of $3, $5, $10, or $20 per month. Again, that's patreon.com/NAHblog. You can start or stop anytime. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian podcast. I'm your host, Relando Tompkins-Jones. I'm a social worker, social justice educator, writer, organizational consultant, and now podcaster who works to build more equitable and inclusive communities. I am also an aspiring humanitarian. My experiences have shown me that in the process of working for social justice outwardly, it's also important for us to continue to critically examine ourselves, shedding attitudes and behaviors that are oppressive to make room for those that are more inclusive, just, and humanitarian. What is an aspiring humanitarian, you ask? When I say humanitarian, I don't mean humanitarian in the harmful sense of placing ourselves in the role of a benevolent hero who's there to swoop in and save others. I mean dedicating one's life, time, and energy to honoring the ways that our destinies are intertwined. It's about accepting the lifelong pursuit to become more humane to those around us, with the recognition that we lose important parts of our humanity when we allow and enable the suffering of others. It means acknowledging our many contradictions and complications and aspiring to do more, aspiring to do better. It means acknowledging that systems of oppression exist by design and not by accident, and working towards an individual and collective transformation that includes an unshakable belief that our society's safety, viability, survival, and ability to thrive is only as secure as our most marginalized community members. Since 2011, my blog, Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian, has been a place where I've written and curated content on issues of equity and social justice. Through using written word, film, and video, and other forms of media for social justice education, I hope to continue to expand and enrich the narratives about social issues that face our society and to find ways to take action while encouraging others to do the same. Today, the blog and now the podcast is for others who share a passion for that same journey. No matter who you are, where you come from, what your identities are, or what area of work you're in, there's room enough for all of us in this work, and I hope that engaging with the podcast or the blog can move you closer to discovering or reaffirming your answers to the questions that you may have about how you can best be of service. Thank you for choosing the Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian podcast. I'm your host, Relando Tompkins-Jones. So this week, I'm thinking about group dynamics, and I'm going to be sharing a few things in regards to acknowledging social justice issues when it comes to group dynamics that come up. So during this week, I'll be leaning heavily on my experiences as a social worker and organizational consultant, but the things that I do have to share here can be applied in a variety of different ways when it comes to working with teams, being on teams, and addressing those group dynamics. So I'm going to be talking about 4 ways to stay mindful of social justice issues in group work practice. So social workers and other social justice advocates can be found serving in a variety of areas, one of which can include doing group work. So in my own work experience with groups, sometimes I encounter the sentiment that group work automatically eradicates experiences of power and privilege because everyone is treated the same in the group. We're all in the same group, so that just automatically flattens the power and privilege that we bring because we're all existing in the same space and we're deciding to work on something together. Along those same lines, I also encounter the belief that differences don't matter in groups, with the notion being that if facilitators make efforts to surface social injustices, people will get uncomfortable and decide not to come back to the group. It usually ends with suggesting that as long as everyone gets along and works together, the group will be fine. At their core, these concerns cover 2 things that I'm also very concerned with whenever I facilitate or co-facilitate groups: the safety of group members and their willingness to return to the group for later sessions. When I hear that facilitating groups erases experiences of power and privilege because everyone is treated the same, I'm always reminded to explore and question deeper. Is everyone in the group really treated the same? I believe that we have an obligation to tune into issues of social justice and injustice in group work practice when they present themselves overtly or covertly in groups. Working towards building better relationships involves finding areas in which people share some things in common. It really does. Like addressing those commonalities, that's a part of forming and building relationships. It's a very important phase that cannot be underestimated in terms of its level of importance. And it's not something that we can really take shortcuts on either. In addition to that, better relationships can also be gained from working through disagreement and conflict, allowing us to have those opportunities to incorporate new information from the experience. Both of these realities exist simultaneously and will need to be drawn upon again and again in group settings in order to cultivate change. So, addressing those commonalities and finding those commonalities of experience is important, as well as acknowledging and addressing differences in groups and identity and experience. Both of those things are important and exist in the same space in terms of us having some similar traits and experiences, as well as some experiences that are very varied and different. So, with many dynamics in play in group settings and the many choices that facilitators have to make second by second, it can be challenging at times, even for the most experienced person. And we all need help narrowing down and expanding our abilities when it comes to recognizing these different group dynamics that come up. In acknowledging those things, I'm just going to share 4 ways to stay mindful of social justice issues in group work practice. 1, think of groups as smaller societies. One way we can increase our chances on being a positive influence in the lives of the people who are in the groups that we facilitate is to develop awareness of ways that oppression influences the lives of the people that we work with. Oppression can impact a person interpersonally and institutionally, and approaching the group as being a smaller, not disconnected, but connected piece of a broader society can provide a helpful perspective. Viewing the group as a smaller representation of the larger society involves coming in with an understanding that whatever social ills, isms, or issues that exist outside of that group space can manifest themselves within the group as well. So it's really important to recognize that when folks are in groups, no one passes through some invisible barrier that protects them from their oppression or also that removes the privilege that they have. And so all of the dynamics that exist outside of the group still exist within this smaller space that we're establishing. Acknowledge social privileges. We can also address issues of social injustice when they appear covertly or overtly in groups by honestly acknowledging social privileges such as white privilege, heterosexual privilege, male privilege, and others, not only among group members, but among facilitators as well. Ignoring those elephants in the room through silence gives power to dominant narratives of superiority. One thing about this, though, is that although the silence may not be even felt by some, it can come through loud and clear to others, reinforcing experiences of oppression and signaling the insignificance of their identities or experiences. And when I say signaling the insignificance of their identities or experiences, it's not in the reality, but it can reinforce those messages that they've experienced and have seen reinforced in different institutions and systems that they do not matter because of some aspect of their identities that's targeted and marginalized. The degree to who hears or feel those messages and their impact largely depends on our social privileges and our awareness of them or lack thereof. Failing to address social privileges and the way they impact the dynamics of the group can promote covert oppression of some group members, can reinforce the oppression that they experience. Although I understand that many well intentioned people find comfort in the use of colorblindness, that notion and other sentiments of escapism, in which individuals would claim not to see or consider aspects of a person or group's social identity, Using those things in a helper role or any role for that matter serves to minimize and silence the experiences and voices of people with marginalized identities. Seek to increase consciousness. For example, as a cisgender heterosexual male, I have privileges in that context. And that means something. That matters. One of them, including being able to say that here freely without any fear of a backlash for revealing that information. It's important to acknowledge the existence of privilege and oppression in our own lives, as well as in relation to the life experiences of the members of the groups that we're in. Being intentional about finding ways to do so can help facilitators ensure that we don't play a role in recreating an environment that reinforces the same oppression that members experience on the outside of the group. Which brings me to my next point. Listen and practice humility. In addition to working to increase our awareness of ourselves and others, something that I'm constantly reminding myself of before I enter into a conversation or interaction is that when I communicate with someone, be it a close friend, relative, or stranger, I come to them with everything that I have. In turn, they come to me with everything that they have. And by everything, I mean all of our experiences up to that point, be they successes or failures or perceived failures, sources of happiness or sources of pain. We each have a right to our own experiences and to be who we are just because we have lived the lives that we've lived. Just as we are the experts in our own lives, group members are the experts in theirs. An amazing thing about practicing humility is that although we've had certain experiences, being open to having new ones, which challenge what we thought we knew before, can change our perspectives. One way to help groups move forward is by creating that space that lets members share with us how to support them. I think we're so often socialized to have to feel as if we're the experts in our field, possessing all the answers, that we forget about our own infallibility. We forget that we are not perfect. So there's a quote I feel that's worth remembering and incorporating into our own practice when it comes to working with others. And it goes, if you've come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. Sometimes we can go into a group or a situation with a level of certainty that can actually undermine the experiences of the people we would set out to help. So having the perspective that we're learners as well as teachers is important, and humility goes a long way towards helping to build better relationships as it can facilitate learning and understanding in a way that is reciprocal and not just top down. So those are some examples of ways to stay mindful of social justice issues in group work and group practice. What are some things that I may have left out here? Our music is going to start playing pretty soon here. And during that time, I encourage you to think of some other ways, write them down, jot them down, whatever you're doing. Find some way to think up additional ways, because it's only through conversation, experiences with others, that we get enough pieces of input to give us a more complete picture of what's actually taking place. So take a few minutes to think about what are some other ways to stay mindful of social justice issues in groups. What did I leave out? What might you add? Thanks again for choosing the Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian podcast. I look forward to engaging with you in the next episode. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To find show notes for this and additional episodes, visit podcast.notesfromanaspiringhumanitarian.com. Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian is a labor of love and will continue to be. Consider supporting the work of Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian by becoming a monthly patron. Your contributions will help keep this resource alive and support its mission. Visit patreon.com/NAHblog to learn more and make a contribution of $3, $5, $10, or $20 per month. Again, That's patreon.com/NAHblog. You can start or stop anytime. Thank you for joining me this week. Take care.